Good morning, Press Fam. We're so glad that you could join us this morning. If you can stand and worship with us, please. Come on, let's put our hands together this morning. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. My Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. All right, come on. Let's sing it out. It says, if I'm not dead, you are not done. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. And greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. And greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. And greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. My Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. My Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. From death to life, come alive.
They say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break. But they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name. We've heard that there is no way through. We've heard the tide will never change. They haven't seen what you can this morning and for this time to be in the same room together, just singing praises to you, Lord. And we just thank you for everything that you've done in our lives, Lord, and for the word that we're about to receive on worship. Lord, we ask that you would be opening our hearts and our minds. You've probably already been working on it this week, Lord, but that we would be open to seeing you this morning. We ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Here at Quest, we believe church should be a family. You don't get to feel a part of a family in just 1 hour. This is why we encourage you to try Quest. This is where you give us 3 weeks to see if we are the church family you can be a part of, and if not, we'd love to help you find a church that's right for you. Just go ahead and grab that Connect card that's sitting in the chair pocket in front of you. Go ahead and fill it out. Let us know where you're at on your Try Quest journey, and go ahead and take it to the Next Steps desk at the end of the service.
This Christmas, we have the perfect opportunity for you to help us be a church in motion to foster children in Johnston County. If you see in the lobby, there's a Christmas tree set up with angel tree cards for you to pick a child to bless this Christmas. All of the gifts can be brought in on December 10th at our Jingle Jam event.
On November 27th, we're going to be having one service here at Quest. That Sunday, there's only one service, no Thursday service that week as well, because it's Thanksgiving Day, and we're going to be wrapping up our Call to Worship series. It's going to be an amazing day of worship. We're going to worship outside right here on our property. We're gonna have a breakfast food truck, so we want you to bring your blankets, bring your chairs, get bundled up. It's gonna be an amazing time of worship together outside as one church family. So make sure that you're here November 27th at 10 a.m. for one service outside. It's gonna be an amazing time of worship. We'll see you there.
On Saturday, December the 10th, from 5 to 7 p.m., Kids Quest is putting on a Jingle Jam. This is going to be a super fun night of all kinds of Christmas things. You can wear your pajamas, wear a best Christmas sweater. We're going to have a cookie exchange, and we're also going to have some Christmas songs from our worship team. We'll also have tons of fun games going on. We'll have a family scavenger hunt, and just a night to really fellowship together. You can go to our website, questfellowshipchurch.com/events for more information.
Good morning. How you guys doing? My name is Brandon. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm so glad that you are here to worship with us this morning. I got a quick question for you. How many of you like to be put in awkward situations? Like, how many of you guys like to be in a situation to doing something that you're not good at in front of people? Isn't that what you want to do? Right? No. Most people don't like public speaking. Most people don't like doing anything. Like I grew up and I went to a Christian school, and I was a lot different when I was younger than I am now. I couldn't stand. We used to have recitals. We used to have to do Christmas carols, right? And we do pageants. We had to do plays, and you couldn't just say no, right? And like they would ask me to do different things, and I didn't want to do that because I don't want to forget my lines. I have you guys see me and you see me from one side, but if you get to know me, I do not want to put myself in a position to look like an idiot. Like, I know sometimes you're like, you can fool me. That's intentional, okay? Like, I'm trying to be funny. Like, I'm trying to go ahead and make something light, but like, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing or like be made fun of. So I try to steer clear of those type of things, and I try to minimize those type of things, right? So that's why I didn't really do that type of stuff. And so then fast forward, I get out of high school, go to college, and then I meet Jesus. And I'm still a young guy. I came to faith when I was 20, and so I'm out there in Arizona, and we get involved in this church that's really doing some awesome things. Like, they were really reaching out to kids our age. Like, my wife was probably, and her friend was probably the youngest. She was 18 at the time, and we were like 18, 19, 20, 21. And so we're just all these kids that are right out of high school, first, second year in college. I mean, we're all coming to faith. And it's pretty amazing because like it's like this big youth group, and we're just doing all this type of stuff. And so we're just growing, and it's fun, but we don't have a lot of talent. And so it's like a hodgepodge of people. And so what happens is that we're not going to any church. We're just coming here on Thursday nights, hearing this guy preaching his home, and it's changing lives. We're packing this thing out. And the guy realizes that these kids are not going to church, and he's like, man, where you guys at church at? Nowhere. Well, we should start one. Okay, sounds great. And so we started doing it, and we started singing a cappella and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And then we finally get some instruments, and it starts growing. And this guy named Brad came, and he was a good musician. He was fantastic. There's actually this girl who went to school with me who almost made it on American Idol. So we had just some weird stuff that just God gave us some great talent, but he wanted to move on. And so we're sitting here, and I just bought a guitar. I think I was just about to get one for my 21st birthday, and I got this cheap acoustic guitar, and I was like, bing, 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 no, put it away. All right, not for me. Exactly. This is a bad choice, bad decision. This is horrible. This is not working. Have you guys ever tried to pick up an instrument and it just sounds bad no matter what it is? Like, you don't even know if it's in tune or not. Like, you're out of tune, right? It's just not good. And so my friend Brad was an amazing guitarist, and he was like, man, I'm going to be leaving, and I heard that you have a guitar. I need to get you up to speed because I'm going to be leaving in a couple weeks, and I need you to start playing in the band. It's not gonna happen. Like, no, it's okay, man. I'll teach you like 5 chords. You can play like 9,000 Christian songs. It's okay. Like, you gotta play these things. You gotta keep the rhythm and play this. You'll be good in the background. It's okay. Trust me. Like, nah, it really is true. All right. And so I get this guitar. I mean, it's just bad. I mean, it's just horrific. Like, it just trying to get the picking down. The pick kept going inside the guitar. It's horrible. You know, some of you guys know this. It's bad. It's horrible. I'm just up there, and I'm like, dude, I'm never getting in front of anybody doing this, because no one's going to laugh at me. But I just kept working at it and working at it and working at it. And finally he left, and the pastor was like, hey, man, you got to play this Sunday. And I'm like, okay. And it was bad. It was not good at all. But I made a deal. I was like, you know what? I love what God is doing here. I want to be useful. And you know what? I'm willing to push and orientate my life in this area. Like, if this is what you want me to do, I will face my life with intentionality, and I'll just expect that you're going to do something. And you know what? He did. I'm not the best guitar player, but I can keep the rhythm, and I played the songs, and I learned, and I played at that church for 6 years. And then that led me to go, when I'm at Illinois, to get a job at the church that I was at, which I played there for another 6 years. And if I hadn't have taken those times and opportunities, I wouldn't be where I was at right now. And it's all about the fact that I was willing to orientate my life in a way that allowed me to see and God do something different. And that's really what worship is. And that's what we've been talking about, is that these moments that define worship for us, and how do we cultivate them? How do we unlock them in our everyday life? And see, for me, it's a huge passion. As I told first service, is that, you know, I've only been preaching full time for 6 years. Before then, if you knew Brandon 6 years ago, I was playing music. Like, that's what I did, and that's my pathway. Like, like I always say, you hear me all the time, that you gotta find your pathway. Some of that might be reading, some of that might be in the scripture, some of that might be meditating, some of that might be journaling, some of that might be nature, some of that might be worship, right? Like, actually listening. Find your pathway. And for me, it's worship. It's the song. It's how the writer wrote different things. But it's not about the song. It's not about the words. It's about what they point to. And it's about what they remind us of and how it wants to redefine that. And that's, like, I think sometimes what we do, we think that worship is only a message. We think that worship only happens here on Sunday. We think that worship only happens when we listen to our favorite band. And it's really not. Like, worship can be all around us if we are awakened to it. And so Moses is a character that most times we hear a lot about. He's very famous, very wise, was a great leader, had a lot of time showing up with God. And so we see that Moses, in how he was interacting with the people after he gets them out of Egypt, after he gets them, and he's trying to reorientate their life from how it's going to be, he gives them a good prescription of worship. And so in Exodus chapter 33, verses 7 through 11, we're going to look at these verses, then we're going to break them down a little bit into some points that we can take some application from. But let me go ahead and read this little story to you, and then we can get into it, right? It says, now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. And when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his own tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again to camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would depart from the tent. You see, worship requires intentionality. That's the first thing I want you to see that we can kind of glean from this, is that worship requires intentionality. I don't know about you, but I have never gotten good at anything unintentionally. Does that make sense? Maybe you lucked out. I like to go out and play golf, right? I have some friends that are golfers. And I may do something that I've got a ball out of the sand trap back onto the green. It's rolled in and gone in. And they looked at me like I'm crazy, all right? Because they know good and well that's never going to happen again. They know that I don't know how I did it. They don't know. It just happened, right? And I couldn't tell you how to do it. I just know I had to use a sand wedge, right? I know you got to go back a little bit, and you can, once you commit, you can't slow it down, and it's all about how you follow through. I can understand it, but I don't know how I did it because I couldn't do it again, right? So the thing about intentionality is that you do something enough to where you know why you're doing it, you know what the cause of it is, and you can repeat it. Does that make sense? Are we tracking? We can, sometimes we can fall into things, but a lot of times we don't become good at anything unintentionally. You don't become a good musician. A great musician doesn't happen. Every person, as mind-boggling as it is to me, John Mayer could not play the guitar at one point in his life. He couldn't. He had to pick it up. He had to go and buy one day, right? All these people, LeBron James did not know how to dribble a basketball at one point in his life. It's fascinating, isn't it? Just think about that. For the first day had to be the first day. It was day one, and he had to realize this is a carry. They got to dribble the ball. There was times where you couldn't walk and run. You would trip over your feet. There were times where I would be petrified to get up here and speak in front of you. It took time. It took intentionality. You don't become good at anything without being intentional about it. You think someone's been married for 20, 30, 40 years? It blows me away. I love when I ask people how long they've been married. 50 years. I'm blown away. You know why? Because you don't do that by happenstance. You don't stay with somebody for 50 years just because, it just worked out that way. No, it didn't. It did not. Because I know a lot of my friends they are done. It's just not what it is, right? And I've been with my wife for 21. My marriage is fully grown, and I'm ready to send it out the house. And she is not here. Tell me to stop. I'm having fun. And she's not watching online because she's at Michael's. Tracked you. Anyway, hey, Thursday night. But anyway, like I said, you got to be intentional to know when you can make jokes about your wife because she's not here, right? You got to be intentional about it. I'm 21 years in, I know what I'm doing. You don't just happen into that. You young married men, stay away from that, right? But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't just happen. It does nothing just shows up. Sometimes you might get lucky. Right? Sometimes you might back into, but what did Moses do? He set some things up. He took and put the tent outside of camp. You get that with me this morning? It's right there. It's glaring. When me and Paul saw it, it's so big. It's like there it is right there. That's the whole sermon. Moses knew God told him, if you want to set something up, if you want to be intentional, think about it, it needs to be away from you every day. What do? You go to the gym. You go fishing. You go camping. We're going to go on vacation. I'm going to go to my shop. I'm going to go to the office. You have set up, you already do this. You have places in your life that's different than where you lay your head at. And a lot of times within our camp, right, our camp can be in our family, then our camp can be our friends, it's our community. We're in there, it's a hustle and bustle, and you're busy, and you get worn down, and you get into the groove, and you have to break away. Like if you want to work on your fitness, you got to break away. You have to leave. It's not going to just fall. It's not going to just fall in your lap. I remember some of the greatest advice I ever got is I was like, man, I just don't have time. I can't wait till I have time. And this person was like, you're never going to find time. You only have now. You got to make time. You hear me? You got to make it. If you're waiting on time to fall in your lap, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. It's going to be sucked up in something else. So you have to be intentional with your time. If your marriage is horrible, you have to be intentional with that. If your kids are bad, you have to be intentional with that. If you keep going to a church and they're horrible, it's probably you. So you need to be intentional about that. Why is it everywhere I go, everybody don't like me? It's because it's you. We're just not intentional people by nature. We're just not intentional. It's so hard for us to be intentional. We're so reactional, right? We just want to react. We want to just like let life happen to us. But Moses gives us the blueprint. He took it outside of it every day. And then what did it say? Everyone who wanted to seek the Lord, they had to go on this journey, right? Like you need to go on a journey. Like, do you go on a journey? Are you intentional about it? Like, do you think, when's the last time you thought about it? Like, think about it. To be intentional means you have to be thinking about things. I'm always thinking about stuff because I don't do anything unintentionally. Like I love, like Paul and I laugh because people try to figure me out, and it's funny because I try to be unintentional. Like I try to look very random, and that messes people up because I try to act like everything I'm doing is just whatever, and we get a kick out because it's not. I know what I'm already doing. Like I love gifts, right? So I'm always looking at you. If I like you, and if you're on my list, if you're on my hit list, I'm gonna find out stuff about you. I'm gonna find out things about you. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna pick up on cues that you don't even know about, and I'm gonna try to do something. I want to give you a gift that you're like, wow, I didn't know he knew about that, because I'm intentional about being a good gift giver. But it's the same thing. I'm also intentional about being a good father. So that means I'm gonna try my best to go out of my way to be there for my kids. That also means that I need to create space to get them out of the camp so that we can have that time together. Does that make sense? But the thing is, I don't just think about that on their birthday. I don't just think about that on Christmas. I'm thinking about that every day. And so when you have an intentionality with your worship, you're thinking about it every single day, because it matters for you. And so you want to leave margin for that. Is this just me or is this making any sense? Key point number 2 is that worship requires anticipation. Moses went out to the tent, and all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. It just requires anticipation. When was the last time you had some anticipation? I think a great picture, right? A word picture for anticipation that comes to my mind is Christmas Eve. Remember when you were a kid? Remember when you had little kids? You remember how much they anticipated Christmas? Like that night, you didn't have to tell them twice, did you? Time for dinner. Okay. Clean your plate. Already done. Put your pajamas on. Already on. Right? I mean, they're ready to go, right? I mean, it's Christmas Eve. And then if you had siblings, or if they had siblings, you would hear them in there talking and be like, you gotta go sleep. I can't, I'm so excited, right? Because they're wondering, and they just know that every time before there's been goodies under the tree, and they know that nothing's gonna be different this time, right? And so they're so jazzed up. They're so excited that they can't even go to sleep. And they want to, and it becomes the longest night, right? Because you just can't even go to sleep. My wife is like this when I say we're going to Disney. She loves Disney. Not before Disney, my wife can't go to sleep. My wife can go to sleep listening. Well, anybody can go to sleep listening to me. But anyway, she can go to sleep anywhere. But if we're going to Disney, she can't help herself. She's just too jazzed up. She loves it. Because they know. The people were anticipating. See what they did? Like they saw, oh man, what's Moses doing? Moses is walking to the tent. Can you feel that energy? like, oh man, they're looking, hey, get the kids. Moses is going to the tent. And there's an expectancy there, isn't it? There's like, you expect something. Like, why is Christmas so awesome? Because you're expecting to get something. You're expecting to see something wonderful on that tree. Why were they anticipating? Because they were expecting to see God. Amen? They were expecting to see that. Doesn't that change everything? Because a lot of times we get what we're looking for, don't we? Sometimes God goes above and beyond. Sometimes life gives you something that you didn't even know you wanted or needed or were looking for. But a lot of times what we're looking for, we'll find. If you don't expect there to be anything under that tree, if you don't expect something, a lot of times you're not going to find it. Or if you have an attitude or a heart that's not grateful or not thankful, you probably won't have a great Christmas, will you? So we teach our kids to be thankful and appreciative because you can control your mindset. Like I remember my stepmother gives horrible gifts. She just does. It just is what it is. And so I remember when we go over to, when my kids were little, we would go to my dad's house in Christian. We lived in Illinois, and it was just bad because it just is what it is. I'm not trying to be this way, but like she would give for her grandkids, and she would not give. And it's just weird. It was a weird thing. And so I would tell them, hey, you know what it's going to be? You're going to go over there, and they're going to open up stuff in front of you, and you're going to get a gift card, okay? You know what it is. Don't worry about it. And even though I told them this, right? Even though I gave them this, it probably hurt, right? Because you're kids. You see that. Like, it's just not good. You see somebody get a PS3 and you get a jacket. You know, you get a pair of Jordans, you get a sock, you know, or keep your mittens warm. My hands can fall off. I don't care about these hands. I want some shoes, you know what I'm saying? And so but I was trying to get them to understand to anticipate on even a negative side, like this is what it's gonna be, that helps set the tone, right? And so like, hey, just be thankful, just redo the slate. Moses was saying to them, when you see me go over there, you know it's about to be a good thing. But do we anticipate that? Like when you got up this morning, did you know you were gonna encounter God? Was that on your mindset? Like, why are you here? Why did you get up, get dressed, get in your car, and come here? For what? For what purpose? Hopefully, it was because you were anticipating having a connection with God. And hopefully, it wasn't the first connection to God you had since last Sunday. Man, see, we don't have to wait for Christmas Eve. We don't have to wait for Easter. Easter come, and it's a great day, and it's full of pageantry. But guess what, church? We as believers live out Easter every day. We live out Easter every day. He's risen every single day. Every day that you open your eyes, he is raising you again to new life that very day. So we don't got to wait. It's Christmas every day. But we don't live that way. We don't act that way. And we sure don't worship that way. Key point number 3 is that worship puts us in the presence of God. Worship moves us, and it puts us in the presence of God. Like, that's what worship should be doing. That's worship's goal. Like, that's why we call it worship services. That's why we have a time of worship. That's why preaching is worship. That's why we feel like connect groups are worship. That's why we think that serve teams is worship. That's why we want to go out and serve our community with worship. That's why we say, let's be the hands and feet of Jesus. It's because we believe that worship, when it's done right, when it's done correctly, when it has the right motivation, when it's doing the right things, it should put you in the presence of God. What did it say? And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship at their tent door. You see, the thing about it is that when Justin's playing the piano, when our band is up here leading and they're singing, it's not supposed to be us just watching and clapping. It shouldn't be when Paul or I are preaching or anybody else is preaching that you're just watching and amening. It should be that you're seeing someone use their particular gifts for their glory, for God's glory, and that it should lead you to want to worship. Does that make sense? That you should be wanting to join into that. Like that's why we build, that's why we say that the cross is always open. That's why we say that you can get prayers. That's why we have to respond, because there's this give and take. What did it say? It said that when Moses was talking to God, it said that it was as him talking to someone face to face. That's back and forth, isn't it? That's not one way. What kind of one-way relationship is defined by that way? It's not one that's good. You see, we usually just don't randomly find ourselves in these places where we can truly worship. It's based on decisions and choices, right? Like you made choices and decisions that led you here today. And you made choices and decisions this week that led you to where your heart is at today. And what we're trying to say throughout this message series is that maybe you need to have a little more intentionality in the decisions that you make. That maybe if you were to anticipate the fact that you were really coming in front of God, that would change some different things. Because it's all about your perspective. Like I've told the story before of how I met Rick Warren, but I'm gonna tell it to you differently because the way I told it before, it was kind of like chance. But when you think about it, it really wasn't. It was based on choices. This is like I said, when I was in Arizona at this church never got beyond 75 to 80 people because it was a very judgmental church. Now here's the deal. They taught me a ton about the Bible, and the Bible was king, and they taught me a lot about the scripture and gave me a lot of things to understand, but I never read any other books besides the Bible and the commentary on the Bible. And right around this time, Rick Warren had came out with this book, Purpose-Driven Church, and he had become big by this. He'd made so much money. And my pastor believed that anybody who had a big church must not have been preaching the gospel. Does that make sense? He didn't think it was possible. Like, that's what he said. That's what he preached. He told us that you just can't do it. He's like, Jesus had a small crowd. You look through it, they must be doing something other than Jesus if the church is big. I'm young, like whatever, maybe it could be true because you also can see some of those type of things. You find what you're looking for, right? And so I grew up in this mentality where I was like, man, that's not good. So I didn't investigate any of that stuff. Didn't read any of that stuff, didn't know any of those things. I just kept my head down. It wasn't until I went to Illinois where I was engaged with another pastor who said, hey, man, you got to read. You got to start expanding. There's a whole lot of things out there that you don't know. And I was like, reading's for dummies. No, that's a dumb statement. And so I started reading. I started picking up other things like, wow, there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of thoughts out there. And I started reading Rick Warren, started reading Francis Chan, started reading Tim Keller, started reading Matt Chandler, started reading these guys that had a lot of things to say. And I was like, man, there's a lot of different opinions, and there's more than one way to look at things. And I put some intentionality into my faith and into my beliefs and what I thought about the church landscape. And it began to say, you know what? The sandbox is a lot bigger than I thought, right? Has it ever happened to you that you had a small mindset? And then you put some intentionality into asking, why do I believe that? And you realize that there's much more to believe, that the gospel is a lot bigger than what we want to put it in the box of what it is. And then I was invited to go down to a pastor's conference, and it was in Orlando, Florida, and I didn't want to go. Like, it was going to be down there for a few days. Like, I don't want to hear this. It's going to be boring. This is stupid. Who wants to do that? You got to go. Fine. I go down there, and I got to meet Rick Warren. He's taught these 7 a.m. Bible studies. I was like, that's pretty cool. And I got to hear Francis Chan and hear these guys that I read about. I was like, wow, these guys are powerful speakers. They're fantastic, and I want to know more about them. I want to know more about the church. I want to know more about this. And so I started anticipating going down to these conferences. I started anticipating going down to these workshops, and they were pouring into me, and it was growing my faith. And so then, many years later, when I'm out walking in between a session, and I see Rick Warren kind of sitting where Justin is, and he's talking, and I do me, I'm like, I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be that guy. You know how it is. You want to walk up to somebody. So what I start doing? Inching. Just like that. Just inching. Ear hustling. Playing my phone. just kind of linger. You know what I'm talking about. And then finally he looked at me and said, hey, you want to sit down? What? Of course I do. And we sat down and we talked, and it's just amazing. This guy was fantastic. I led a ministry at my church, and he did a video for it. It was just super cool. But here's the deal. That was not chance. Because had I showed up to that conference in the same way that I was years ago, I would have walked right past Rick Warren. And see, sometimes if we don't have intentionality, if we don't have anticipation, if we don't believe in God's presence, that we can come to service on Thursday and Sunday, we can walk right past the Holy Spirit. We can walk right past the worship moments. And see, this is why we're doing this sermon series, is because we believe that it's so easy for us to walk past these moments. Because we're broken. Because we're out of tune. And just like me picking up the guitar was not natural, in our broken, fallen state, worship is not natural. Not to our God. And see, our next step this morning is simply to position your life for worship. And to position your life for worship, you do what it says. You need to put yourself in positions to worship. And then when those positions come, when those opportunities come, you need to take the posture of worship. Church, I want to be real with you right now. We got a little bit of time this morning. I'm going to be 100% real with you. We're too concerned with what other people are going to think about us. We're too concerned about if we're going to do it right. We're too concerned with I don't think I know everything. I don't have all the answers. And because we're so scientific, because we want everything to be so squared away, we miss so many beautiful spiritual moments. So I'm going to tell you this right now. You're not going to comprehend and know everything about God in this lifetime. Did you hear what I said? You're not going to be able to understand everything that happens. You're not going to be able to characterize and say, this is why he did this and that. Because if you could, he couldn't be God. So we have to come to that understanding that that's just what it is. And so the bottom line is that we realize that the only thing that's keeping us from really worshiping is a lot of times our pride, our foolishness, our arrogance to say that I don't do it. Because that's just what it was, right? What wanted to keep me from getting on the stage and learning, what wanted to keep me from trying to use a gift I didn't even know was inside of me was my fear of messing up. My fear of what somebody else would say. What does it matter? If God is saying and he's calling you right now, all Moses did was he got out there and he used his gift. He says, I'm going to go and I'm going to worship. If you want to come follow me, you come follow. So I'm going to ask you to stand. And right now I'm going to do something different. The band is going to play this song, and this is one of my favorite songs because this song is a prayer and a declaration. And this song talks about what we will do. That if this, it's an if-then statement. If this is true, then I am going to live like it's true. And here's the deal. I know that some of you right now, when you sing these words or hear these things, they might not be 100% true for you right now. You might not be feeling them right now. But can you just believe in the one that they're speaking about? Can you believe that the God of creation set all this in order so that he can have a relationship with you? That's the whole story of the Bible, that all of this, everything we're doing is because he wants to talk to you face to face, intimately, and that you have that opportunity. And then why would you not want to take that opportunity? Because your neighbor to the left, because you haven't done it before, because it's not how you grew up, because you just don't quite know. I'm asking you right now in this moment to lay that down. Can we just have a true moment of surrender? Can we do that? Is that possible, church? Is it possible for us to really just be in this moment? Because why do we do this if we can't? Everything we do here is that we can come to the end of our tent and see and anticipate God showing up. And if we don't believe he's going to do that, then why are we here? Some of you need God to show up in a mighty way right now. Some of you need God to show up in your health, in your finances, in your relationships, in your job. Some of you need God to show up and rectify you from addictions, from secret things you have that held back in the dark. What's holding you back? The liberator is here. Take this moment and clear your mind. And let us, for the first time in a long time, position ourselves right now to worship.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. At no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship so loud, I can see your heart in everything you make.
See, right there, you need to let this moment just sit. We're so quick to just want to turn away from this, right? The God of creation chased us down. No matter how many failures we have, no matter how many times we struggle with not being able to believe, he's right there. And see, the beautiful thing I love about this song is that it's saying is what it is, like that everything in the creation, when it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, is an act of worship, amen? That when the stars are out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, when the wind goes where it's supposed to go, when the ocean knows its bounds, that's an act of worship. And the question for us is that are we going to be in line? That when we don't worship, it says that the rocks will cry out, that the rocks will give him his glory. But will we abandon that position of pride? Will we abandon that position of thinking we have to know and define everything? And will we actually just worship? And that's what we're inviting you here. Every week when we give you an opportunity to respond, we say the cross is open. Why? Because we believe that as you're moving and living, that you should be running and clinging to the cross, to hope of your salvation, to remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. That's reminding who fights for you when you can't fight on your own. It's always open. And then we have prayer. We have a prayer team in the back because the Bible says that we need to cast our cares on one another. That we cast them to Jesus because he cares about it, but we also bear each other's burdens. And so we want to be able to pray for you and your family and for your loved ones. And we know that you're going through things and there shouldn't be any type of shame. There should be freedom to say, I can worship God because I can go have my brother and sister pray with me. So in this moment right now, let the Holy Spirit lead you. Maybe you need to go to the cross. Maybe you need to go and get prayer. Maybe you want to take that Connect card and you want to write something down and you want Pastor Paul and I to follow up with you and have a one-on-one conversation about the next step. Whatever that is, in this moment, this is the time for us to worship. This is the time for us to come to our tent and say, God, we are here. We anticipated you moving, and now that you're moving, we want to respond. Let's respond as God is leading.
God of salvation, he chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it
so thankful that you guys decided to come and worship with us this morning. And we're going to play for just a little bit longer if you need a little bit more time to respond. But if not, we will see you next week. We're glad to see you.